Hello, everyone. My name is HERMIXALOT. This is Backstage Pass. I have Jamie Pabst. I have Hilary Gleason. I can't do them justice. I'm going to let them introduce themselves in a bit, but we are here because it is Mental Health Awareness Month, and we're going to talk about the toll of being an artist and how to take care of ourselves in an industry that can often make it feel like that's not something that we should be leading with. Jamie, let's start with you. Tell the girls what's what.
Cool. Thanks so much. Hey, everyone. I'm Jamie Pabst. I'm the founder of Spiritune, which is a therapeutic music app aimed at delivering music as medicine. I'm also a DJ and also on the board of music for neurologic function and the Child Studies Center at Yale. So collectively, all of those things roll up into all the things I care about, or a lot of the things I care about, which is music, the mind, medicine, technology.
Very cool. Thanks for being here. And Fem House fam, you no doubt know Hillary by now, but I'm gonna let her run down her very extensive CV here as well.
I'm gonna do a very shortened version of the CV. But I'm Hilary Gleason. I'm a co-founder of Backline, which is a mental health and wellness resource for the music industry and their families. We launched in 2019, and I've served as executive director since that time. We are helping connect music industry professionals with therapy, financial aid, rehab, wellness modalities, connecting them out to great apps and providers. Spiritune is one of our partners. And I've been working at FEMME House for the past 4.5 years, serving as their director of development, and really sharing a lot of knowledge between the two orgs about how to be a music nonprofit in uh, today's global economy. So really appreciate the opportunity to wear both of my Backline and FemmeHouse hats today and talk about mental health. This is a big month for both Jamie and I. Mental Health Awareness Month, we were just talking about before this, is a really busy time for our organizations, but a great opportunity to really platform the work that we do and make sure that people know that we're here to support their journeys.
Awesome. Thank you both for being here. A bit of quick housekeeping for the audience. We want to reserve time for questions, but to make sure that we have time to address everybody's questions, I'm going to ask that you use the Q&A box so that they sort of stay there lying in wait. So at the end, I can go through the Q&A box to make sure we get to everyone. Don't drop them in the chat. Ankh doesn't even know how to access the chat, to be completely honest with you. Um, but let's jump right back in. It's Mental Health Awareness Month, obviously. And so a lot of these conversations are at the forefront. One thing that I think for me was important in doing this conversation is I'd love to hear from both of you about how we keep this conversation at the forefront instead of just thinking and talking about it during May. Hillary, I'll start with you on this because I know that that's Backline's mission in a nutshell.
Yeah, and I think even with our mental health awareness posts, like we're really trying to be like, this is a month that you might come to us or find us because of the increased visibility, but we're doing this work 365. And really wanting to empower music industry professionals to do their mental health and wellness work 365 as well. This is an incredibly hard industry to thrive in, but it can be made easier by support networks, whether that's therapist, a peer group that understands what you're going through, a community like FemmeHouse. Having people that you can talk to about your journey is a huge part of that work. But I personally have found wellness to be the easiest way for me to do my mental health work every single day. I am a big meditator, so if I don't get that in, then you will see me off my rocker later in the day. It's important that I get a few minutes in my day that's just for me. And I think that finding stillness in the world is more and more important as your phone is going off all day long. You're accessible to people nonstop. Finding a way to put on do not disturb in your own life is is really important. And I think that these conversations can hopefully help inspire people to figure out what their wellness or mental health practices are that they feel like they can easily tap into every day. I think accessibility of those resources is a huge problem still. And so organizations like Backline and Spiritune are really working to put these resources in your hands, make them easy and attractive to want to spend some time in. So it's really a great opportunity for us to spread the word about the work that we do, but also really wanting to empower people to say this could start during May for Mental Health Awareness Month. Great time to pick up a new practice, but hopefully something that fits into your daily life and schedule, and can become one of your habits or non-negotiables.
Jamie, what's your take on that? Because I know that Spiritune's, one of Spiritune's sort of North Stars is orienting creatives toward incorporating and integrating this work in their routines and how they think about decision making and just like every day.
Yeah, absolutely. I love this question, and really Hilary said it so well, so I don't have a lot to add, but I will say in terms of how, we make mental health awareness more than a month, is really, I think first and foremost is a big one is stigma, talking about it, how we're feeling, normalizing how we're feeling, um, embracing our community to talk about it. Um, in addition to understanding the tools, getting better tools out there, more accessible tools, more culturally relevant tools, and understanding what works for you, I think are all big ones. And of course, music is one of the most culturally relevant modalities we have. And so that is what gets me excited every day about showing up to build and bring Spiritune into the world, is that we can tap into something that we already know and love. And as musicians, that's something that probably brought us to the industry in the first place, right? We love probably listening to music, playing to music growing up. And so it's something we naturally turn to. So why not use it more intentionally and more therapeutically as a wellness tool when we are giving so much of ourselves resourcefully, energetically, to create music, to deliver music in our professional careers. And so it can give that right back to us as a therapeutic tool. And that is what Spiritune's working towards from a science and kind of clinical basis.
That's awesome. I want to talk a little bit about the sort of unique challenges that I think are unique to the music industry, specifically working in this sort of creative space where let's say it can be a much less formal space than other spaces, which can lend itself to things like substance dependency and this idea of sort of partying as work and specifically for artists too, when you layer that sort of thing on top of the inherent vulnerability of sharing one's art and opening oneself to critique, and maybe you layer on top of that financial instability or this idea that, as a touring artist, you can't stop because if you stop, then that's your chance. Um, Hilary, I'm curious about how I know Backline has just a rich suite of programming that sort of addresses all of these things for professionals, for their families, for artists. Can you speak a little bit more about how we can encourage artists to sort of think about these things and confront these things head on all year long and integrate it into their sort of creative and business practices?
Yeah, I think talking about this in general is a great thing, but like getting into the nitty-gritty, it seems like in my conversations with artists, sometimes you have to find that like aha, gotcha moment with people. For any of us in music to admit that we're not doing as great as we're telling everyone that we are, right? There's so much smoke and mirrors in this industry. Even as a developing artist, you're saying, like, I just played this huge gig. Look at this huge smile on my face. Here's my new track, right? Everything is a highlight reel that you're pushing out. And so when you're asking people, how are you? It's always like, oh, I'm doing so great. I just got this thing with Beatport, or, whatever the big win is for them. And so to like double down and say, like, how are you really? Are you sleeping? Are you eating? How has touring been? Those kinds of questions. Oh, well, it's kind of been actually really hard in that way. It's like, yes, okay, there's the magic, right? And like, what exactly is feeling hard right now? And I have come to experience in my own mental health journey, but also in working with people within Backline, it can be a bit of a whack-a-mole where it's like when you're first trying to get into the industry, you're dealing with imposter syndrome. I don't belong here, right? And then when you're experiencing some success, people are going to start to tear you down, right? So it's like not always the same issue. It's actually something that will change as your career changes, and recognizing that getting to a place of stability is actually what I think success in this industry looks like. And knowing that when something hard happens, you have a safety net to fall back on. That could be your relationship with your therapist or your community or your partner, right? But building conversations and vulnerability and support networks that are understanding of what you're up against, and then also what you're doing to combat that, right? So I have friends in the industry far and wide, and somebody will be going off, I'm having the worst day, worst week, worst month, right? And it's like, okay, what's going on specifically today? Have you taken a walk? Have you eaten? Are you having trouble sleeping? Have you talked to a therapist? Right. And there's like a level of things that you can do. But I always play by the just add water rule, which is like a shower, a bath, a sip of water, something, go like be by a water source if you can. Any of those things seem to really help me. But it's so hard when you're in it, under your covers, the whole world is doom and gloom and you can't figure out how to get yourself out of it. That is the moment that I think is the critical point of you have to make a choice then, right? You either crawl out of it or you don't. And I think that all of us in music have a tendency to crawl out of it, but then sort of pretend like it didn't happen.
Mm.
And so like owning our stories is a big part of this work too, right? And to say like, yeah, actually, my success is built on so many hard moments and mountains that I had to climb to get here. And it wasn't given to me, it was earned. I think is it actually really much more beautiful story, and something that's going to really attract fans and other musicians to like connect with you because it is relatable. I've been loving watching Noah Kahan's documentary rollout and like how people are responding to that, where, he really experienced overnight success, it seemed like, to a lot of people. And that's kind of the dream. You get discovered on TikTok, you get a label deal, they invest a bunch of money into you, and then you go far. But for him to sort of wind that back and say, like, at this point in my career, it looked like this. And then now I'm playing arenas and it looks like a different thing, but it's still not good, right? It's like the most relatable thing of all. And he's number one on the charts for multiple weeks now with his album, because I think every single person out there can relate to that. And so there's actual, like, a lot of value and like return on investment for being vulnerable about your journey and like how it's affected you, affected your songwriting, where you are in things. Our chief education officer at FEMME House, Minnie Bear, recently put out a track that's like very focused on her grief story, right? And it's also the track that she was the most proud to put out, right? And like there are parts of that story that I think are really resonate with me as a non-musician. And it was a track I was more excited to like pull out my phone, get into the link, listen to it, because it has a real story there. And so I think there's so much nuance in this world of like, you don't want to show people too much, but if you can show them that you're a human and you're working hard to make this music, I think it lands differently for folks.
Jamie, I think that you talk about a lot is sort of this idea of alignment, specifically for artists and just creative people in general, with this idea that, if you're aligned, if you're living an aligned life, even if that life isn't necessarily stable, it's hard to have stability no matter how aligned you are, right? Just especially in
Yeah.
your industry. Um, that it'll sort of lead to better work, more honest work, using Minnie Bear, our chief of education, as an example. I know, she's yes, my chief of education, but she's also a dear friend, and we've been dear friends for a number of years. And one of the things that she did was she made a conscious choice. She's gonna watch this and be like, "Girl, why am I in it? Why am I 20 minutes of the mental health awareness month live
Now
stream?"
I gotta meet her now.
But
She was
one of the
here.
things that she did is she made a conscious choice in the wake of all of this grief. There was sort of a personal awakening, like, shit, life is short. Things can change in an instant in a really bad way. What's important to me? Oh, what's important to me is being an artist, making the best art that I can make. What's standing in the way of that? Oh, shit, I say yes to everything. I have all these jobs that I got because I'm an artist that have ironically taken me away from being an artist. Um, and once she sort of did that work for herself, she wrote probably the best track of her career, the one, as Hilary said, that she's most proud of. And there is something to be said, I think, and I think this is a lot of what Spiritune sort of deals with and helps with for artists. There's something to be said about just sort of like cleansing oneself and allowing oneself to live in these ways and to experience and to feel in these ways that ultimately are better for the art, which can often get lost in the economy of this art that we're all here for.
Totally. You said it so eloquently. I don't know that I have a
Sorry,
lot
girl, I
more to
stepped.
add,
Did
but
I step on your speech? My bad. I get
no, totally not. No, it was really lovely. I was just sitting back listening, nodding my head because I'm in total agreement. Um, but I agree with you. It's the thing we say time and time again is that you cannot pour from an empty cup, you know, and emotions are what makes us uniquely human. And as musicians or artists or DJs, we harness those emotions and them to music, and what a beautiful thing. But in doing so, it can be depleting, combined with the unpredictability of the music industry, which brings about a lot of uncertainty and stressors that are unique to the music industry, though everybody has uncertainty in their life. That's part of being human, and part of coping with it is being okay with uncertainty. But what are the things that we can do to hold on to some amount of certainty that we can control? And so these things like routines in the midst of perhaps a totally unstructured schedule, what are the things that that can bring you back to an alignment? Hilary mentioned, being by the water is really helpful for her, but even if that's not accessible, right? What are the things that you can tap into that can bring you back into alignment? Because that's the only way um, you are going to be able, to continue like any career, but certainly sustain a career, particularly with creativity in mind, is to really kind of refill your cup, realign. Um, Again, not to harp on, music, but again, that's something that's accessible. It's at our fingertips that can bring you back into alignment. But there's other things. There's, just going for a simple walk, meditation. I am a big proponent of a nap. If you can get a 20-minute nap in, like, please do it. But it's really tapping into the things that can bring you back into alignment and create some certainty in the midst of a lot of uncertainty, because it's so important to sustaining a career.
Let's let's zoom out a bit and talk about, or zoom in, depending on how you want to look at it. Let's talk about the music quite literally. Like, what is the science of I know a little bit about this. I don't know a ton. I do know that music is a cultural universal and that all of us have it. We've evolved along with it. We all need it. It's part of the way we meaning make, right? It's proven that music therapy can just help things that we don't even think about, like calming our central nervous system, helping us tap into memories, happy memories, like nostalgia, happiness, coziness, joy, right? What is the science behind, or you know what, let's take science out of it for a second. We're all here, the three of us certainly, and I imagine some of the people that are here with us right now. What about music keeps you here? Because girl, the music has to keep you here, right? It's the checks don't keep you here, the perks keep you here for a year or two tops, but we're all here because we love music. Let's speak a little bit of life into that. Like what is it about the music that keeps us here in this industry and also keeps us here as people, quite frankly?
When we were building Backline and trying to figure out like the narrative there was like, well, what does anyone do when they're having a hard time or wanting to get excited or wanting to feel sad or whatever it is, and it's always that you put on a song. And I've thought a lot about working in music because I never expected to. Like, this was not meant to be my career path. And so now I'm in an industry that's so challenging, of it never turns off. There is no time off. There's an expectation to like work all day behind your computer for like those of us more on the exec admin side of this work all day behind your computer, then work all night at the show, networking with people, building an activation, being there with your artist, whatever it is. For artists, I think that's tenfold. And I think we see that a lot with our artist in chief, LPGOB, right? Which is there's this constant pressure to create. And so if you're not at the show or traveling to the show, then you are taking meetings to build your career, you're making the music, you're building the set for that night, whatever it is. And there is so much time investment into that, that I think for a lot of us, it feels like if we were to step out, then we wouldn't see the flowers blossom from the seeds that we've been planting for so long, right? And so there's a bit of like, okay, this has been really hard for so many years, so I got to just stick it out and ride the wave. I also think it's in many ways the best industry. The friendships that I make through my work in music are the friendships that I'm keeping with me for the rest of my life, right? And there is not a huge line of like, that's my coworker. We're friends and we support each other in a way that I think is really special. For me, going to a live show is about the only time that I ever feel normal.
Mm.
And that's neurodivergence, that's social anxiety, that's a lot of things. But if I can be there and have like something that's happening in real time, improvisational, meeting the room where it is, like the vibes are right, directly related to like where you are in space at that time, that for me is such a calming environment. That and the fact that there's no expectation of small talk when the show is on, right? Like there's something really beautiful about that. But I find even with an empty cup, I have it in me to go out to a show. And I also recognize what a privilege it is to be able to not go to a show. If I don't have it in me that day, I cannot show up. Not the same for our artist friends. And so there's in that, I think it can get a little skewed, this industry. And as the artist, there's so many people counting on you to be there to do the show that it doesn't feel like there's a way out in a lot of moments. And also a lot of the relationships within the artist framework are sort of vampirical in nature, right? Your agent wants you to play the show for their percentage. Your manager wants you to play the show for their percentage. There's contract, there's people working the gig. There's all of these people counting on you to show up. And
And it's all happening
pressure,
between the hours of midnight and 4 a.m.
yeah. And that pressure like can really mount. And it feels like then you're on a hamster wheel that you can't escape, even if you need a break. And the way that shows are booked out now, you might not get a break for a year and a half from when you say that you need it. And that in itself is a crazy thing. Electronic music is one of the most challenging genres within music, because of the fact that people are playing to sunrise and beyond. The music literally never stops within the electronic and dance worlds. And that means you're going on sometimes at 4 a.m. Versus people who are in, rock or country or something, they know their show's ending by midnight almost every night, right? And so there's a huge difference there. This week, Backline just launched a new electronic and dance music mental health toolkit. So for people in music, but specifically in electronic and dance music, here's a toolkit that is actually understanding of what you're going through. It covers substance use in a way that is not as relevant for other genres as it is for electronic. It covers touring in a different way where it might just be you on that plane because it's you and your DJ setup, right? And you don't get to travel with a team. You don't have that experience normalized. So, like, really getting into the specifics of working in electronic music versus working in other types of music and in other roles in the industry, I think is like a really specific piece that was missing in how Backline was approaching people that work in this genre and this amazing world that we've found ourselves in.
Jamie, tell me more about the science behind Spiritune.
I thought we weren't talking about science, Laura.
I changed my mind.
Well, okay, I can't not talk about the science, quite frankly, so I'll get there, don't worry. But I think your original question is like, why are we here? Why, why do we choose music, right? What keeps us here? And although, what I do at Spiritune is slightly different than the like music industry at large, I think we all come to the music for, the same reason. I think music is a fundamental way of expressing our humanity. And if you do, want to dive into a little bit of the science, it's like it was our first language before, modern day language. We would speak in rhythmic kind of like tones and things like that. And rhythm is the first sound we hear in our mother's womb. And so we are hardwired as humans to experience music in all ways, from a language, scaffolding, communication, but emotionally. And we are the only creatures on this planet that we know of that have emotions. And so that the fact that music can really tap into that so deeply and connect us to each other is, I think, one of the best things in the world, which keeps me, doing what I do. And probably every musician, they want to express their emotions through their music, but in doing so, connect with other people to feel music. And I think that's, when we go to a concert, like how amazing all the rush we get when we experience all of those emotions. And Hilary, I'll dovetail off of, speaking of, you can even when you're depleted, it's still so amazing to be in the music. So I'll tell you this quick anecdote of, when I first moved to New York, right out of college, I had this career, I had to show up early, but I could not stop like going out to clubs to like, I just loved the music. And I'm like, what am I doing? But also I'm like, this is amazing because it filled my cup. It's like I was tired at the end of the day, but I would go out and I just wanted to feel alive, like my chest, pounding with like the rhythm and the music. And, I had to be in the office at like 8 a.m. in the morning the next day, but it was just so much a part of like the music kind of lives within you. And that's like, I think, we all have a different level of what we call music reward. So some people may feel that really acutely. Some people may like music, but it's not something they have to seek out every day. But I would say people that are in the music industry in some manner, way, shape, or form are probably high reward music people. And this is like what they live for. But, to kind of go deeper into the science, let's, I know we don't have a lot of time, so this could take up a lot of time, but, just to name a few things, music is activating so many parts of our brain when we engage in it, whether listen to it or play music. And mostly it's our reward system. So when we can think of music as a delivery of rewards, when our brain hears music that it finds pleasant, it doesn't have to be your favorite song. It doesn't have to be a familiar song even. It's just if you find the music that you are receiving somewhat pleasant, then the reward system of your brain activates and it sets forth a cascade of neurochemicals like dopamine and oxytocin. Those are our feel-good hormones, and that's what allows us to change our mood in almost minutes.
Mm.
And it's also activating the brain networks that underlie emotion, motivation, stress, and reward. And all of those four things combined completely like encompass our mental health. So when we think about music and mental health as like, a couple thing together, how they relate, they couldn't be more relatable because it's really tapping into all of the constructs that modulate our mental health and help us feel good or sad too, but
When we were building out our partnership with Spiritune and Backline, it really clicked for me. Like, the work that we were doing was like, the industry is so hard. We need to like help people's mental health. And you were like, how about music? And we were like, no, that's the problem, right? And you were like, no, seriously, it can also be the solution. And I think it's
it's
like
the
a really
cure and the cause. That's exactly how
totally,
I put it. Yeah.
totally. And I love that too, because it's been so accessible for like my team, my community. It's not like a guided meditation is not always where you're trying to go, right? Or like really like sometimes I'm not even trying to go to therapy. I'm just trying to feel better, right? And like something like music, great, easy access, right? Okay, I can spend 10 minutes listening to music. I can spend 20 minutes listening to music. And I was telling you this when we were prepping for the call, but I use Spiritune all the time on planes, on the drive to the venue, in an Uber. When I don't want to talk to somebody, I just like throw my headphones in, right? And get in that space. And it's nice because it feels light touch where it's not like I gotta like journal. Like, whoa, no, I can't journal right before the show and then go socialize for 4 hours. Like, but I can listen to something and like actually change my brain frequency is like such a cool thing. And to recognize that like music can be the solution in a lot of these ways has been really illuminating.
I love to
Jamie,
hear that. I could totally see how, an organization that supports supports musicians. It's like, what's your reward? More music. But it is true.
Jamie, can you just give the folks that don't know what Spiritune is a quick rundown of what it is and how you use it?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess we shouldn't assume everyone knows what Spiritune is, should we? So Spiritune is a therapeutic music app, and what that means is we are combining the clinical aspects of music therapy, which is like a licensed clinical, medical practice that's existed since the 1940s, where a music therapist works one-on-one with a patient. And uses music as a therapeutic tool for their symptoms or for their unique condition. So we combine a lot of those principles that have been cornerstones to music therapy, as well as advancements in music neuroscience. So there's like over 900 white papers a year that come out on the effects of music on our brain and our health. And they can't just all sit in academia with, collecting dust. It has to, I mean, part of um, what I'm really passionate about is translating that literature into an application that people can benefit from. So we're taking all of that, music neuroscience, music therapy, translating it into musical composition. So we create music from the ground up with composers and music producers that we work with. Um, and they're all precisely tuned for different emotional or cognitive states. So we call them sonic recipes that our composers compose off of. So it's like, very precise, like things like as basic as tempo, but as more nuanced as the melody and the harmony, the pitch range, the pitch height, um, so on and so forth. And then the music matches to your current state. Say you're feeling anxious, like Hilary before a flight, perhaps. You want to feel calm, for example, and then further personalized around the activity that you're doing, from waking up to workflow to winding down or to sleep. So, three simple questions that help us personalize the music to help nudge you towards your therapeutic goal.
We don't have a, thank you for sharing. And also, we don't have a ton of time here. I want to make sure that we get to like world application for the girls. I feel like so many of these talks just talk about what's going on, why it's important to talk about it. And I often leave these talks be like, okay, bitch, like, but what am I supposed to do? It's like having a therapist that is just like, how do you feel about that? How do you feel about that? And it's just like, I just told you. Now tell me what to do. So like let's be sure to tell the girls what to do. Like what's the integration look like here? What's the integration look like for y'all personally, and how, your companies, your organizations, how are you impacting that? Not just for yourselves, but for shit, me and all the other
Everybody.
yeah, everybody.
Yeah, great question. So there's kind of a few different ways. Spiritune is largely B2B2C, meaning we do usually partner with organizations such as Backline, where mental health for members or employees or the community is important. So that can be employers where Spiritune can show up as an employee mental health resource. It may come as no surprise that 75% of workers do what we call on-task music listening. So music is such a culturally relevant thing for people to do to feel good, be productive during their workday. But we also integrate into clinical practices too. So if you're going to see a therapist or have other types of care, Spiritune is often what we call an adjunct to care, where people can use Spiritune in between their point of care clinical visits and have some agency over their own health by using music whenever they want, really. And in those settings, we've seen a 60% improvement in mental health scores in 3 weeks' time compared to people that did not use Spiritune in their behavioral health programs, which is, again, like an amazing testament to what music can do for us and our mental health. But, we also, even though we don't necessarily promote it all the time, but here we are right now. You can actually download Spiritune. It's on our website, a free 7-day trial. So I'm going to give you a very prescriptive, actionable thing. I encourage everyone to listen for at least 20 minutes a day, if not 30, if you can. Why? Because that is what, early research shows can have lasting benefits if you actually set up a practice. I don't think 20 minutes of music is such a hard thing to ask. Like, you can let it play in the background while you're brushing your teeth, making your breakfast, commuting, even getting to sleep. So 20 minutes a day. And it can really, really shift your mood. And we were talking about, not waiting until things get bad. This is a great way to support yourself upstream when you're already feeling okay, maybe just a little depleted, everyday stuff. Because yeah, we want to support being well, not, sick care when things are, bad.
Period. Preventative care. Dr. Gleason, what's
Preventative care. There you go. Spoken
Uh,
like a doctor.
Preventative care is like by far the best thing that you can do. And I think it's also sometimes the hardest, right? If things are going all right, then it's hard to like take stock of what your goals are or how you want to change things. Or even I think so many of us have gotten used to coping. And so then you think you're doing all right, but it's only because you're not taking stock of things. So preventative care is always going to be like the primary thing that we'll tell people to do, but not so often our experience at Backline. People are coming to us like when the wheels are falling off. And that is, I'm at rock bottom. I have $0 to pay for therapy, or I need to go to rehab tomorrow. And so we're meeting people where they are, which is often like they're calling us because they need us in that exact moment. And some of those things take a while to get into, right? And I'm really proud that we can get you into with a therapist much quicker than your insurance can. But you still have to like date that therapist to make sure that they're the right fit. You know, if you want to go to rehab, it can take a couple days, it can take a week or two. And so what do people have during that in between time, right? Maybe you've taken a step towards getting care, but what are you doing during that time? That for me is where wellness is best served for our clients, because I think that you can see the benefit when you are at rock bottom so quickly. So some of the wellness stuff that we're pointing to people too include Spiritune, include apps like breathwork. We also have like guided breathwork practices. So there's a lot of things that you can do like that to fill your cup. But essentially, it's like you are in control of your own destiny. And that's the case for every part of your music career and every part of your life. And so I think that's where it can be really overwhelming, and where a company like Backline can step in to help, which is you might not know what you need. And let's just talk about it. Where are you in your career? Are you touring? Are you emerging? Are you in an office? You know, what's your specific role? What are your needs? What are you struggling with? And then all of a sudden it becomes clear, you know, what the path is. So that's what we do during our case management calls. And that program specifically is one-on-one support in navigating the mental health and wellness space to find resources that work for you. So you get to talk to one of Backline's amazing case managers that are helping you build out a plan that you are going to be able to enact the next day, right? And that is, we already checked that this therapist has availability for you. We know that you can afford it. They take your insurance. Here's a grant for financial aid because you said you needed that to be able to get started. Like, there are resources our case managers have within our databases and networks that they can provide to you. And all of a sudden the path becomes a little bit more clear. So I think like actionably, I am always pointing people to case management because it's like, if you don't know, let's figure it out. And I think we could all use something. And there's so many different avenues to living a better life, to feeling a little bit better day to day. And so all of these pieces fall into that. In January, we just launched a 24/7 hotline that people can call or text anytime called Beeline. And that's made a huge difference for me and my community already, of knowing that it might be 4 a.m. in Miami, nobody's awake but you, that is ready to have that conversation anyways. And there's somebody waiting there to talk to you. It operates exactly like 988 does, except for they understand the music industry. And so you're getting questions like, is anybody from your touring party awake right now? Have you talked to a loved one? Like, recognizing that people are maybe out on the road or in a tour bus or, you know, whatever that is. So Beeline for me is like the most immediate response plan that now exists in the industry. And I'm really excited that people have that. But I think ultimately all of these things are better together, right? So no point in doing therapy by itself if you are not going to figure out some wellness things that work for you, even a simple walk, right? And same with the wellness. It's like, that is great, but are you going deeper? Are you looking truly at your life, your goals, what you want, what you need, and do you have the resources that you need to even advocate for yourself? So all of these things exist in like a Venn diagram of things that you can, you know, tap into that can support your journey, but it's really on you to figure out those puzzle pieces. And what works for me isn't going to work for Jamie, isn't going to work for Lo. So it should be an individualized journey, and like really giving people places to find what that journey looks like and explore that. And it's daunting to start, but it's wonderful to be in, to know that, okay, I've been having a really hard couple weeks. What can I add into things to change that perspective? What can I do to change this? And once you realize how many things are out there, it becomes a lot easier to, you know, add things into your basket that are going to support you in that moment. So actionable is take stock of where you are, ask for help. And if you've already got some of these things on lock, amazing. What else can you add, right? Or can you be that light for somebody else? Can you share that story? Can you build that space where people feel comfortable talking about what they need? A friend like that can get you through the hardest day. And so just really encouraging people to like really take stock of their own self in this and what they need, but also how that interacts with their larger community. And I know sometimes for Lauren and I in working together, it's like, oh, I got to take care of myself for you. And that can sometimes be the reason when you can't take care of yourself for yourself.
Dr. Lawrence says, would add to that, that everything is so much harder when you're hungry, thirsty, or tired. So those three things should absolutely be your baseline as a human being. Well, we're not
Some of
doctors.
the basics, right? It's
The
like,
basics, the
we
basic bio.
forget, we leave
Yeah,
behind the basics way too often. So if we can come back to the basics, we're already doing so much to support our health.
come back to the basics, girl. We're not doctors, but we play them on TV, on Zoom in this case. Thanks for being here. I am HERMIXALOT. This is Jamie Pabst. This is Hilary Gleason. We are recording this, and it will be clipped for your eyes only on socials throughout the month to give you reminders to eat, drink, get near water. What did you say? Just add water?
Mm-hmm.
Just add water and take that ass a nap. This has been Backstage Pass, from my mental health to yours. Thanks for being here. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Dr. Lauren.